Welcome back, and it's time now for us to serve you the news review. Guess who's joining me? Mapito CBD. Good morning.
Benjamin, how are you?
Not the best of mornings, really, but we come and we do what we have to. What?
What's happening?
Oh, you know, sometimes you just wake up feeling a bit. It is what it is.
It is what it is. Well, good morning.
But let's start on this rather wet note. I'm sure you came across the rains at some point, heading back home or something yesterday.
I did, and I slept in the dark last night because I didn't have lights.
Oh.
And then they said it's...
You know, there's a bit of a trigger sometimes when the light goes off.
so that's what they said.
They have to turn them.
They said there was...
When the rains come, they have to turn them.
They had to turn the lights off, yeah. So there was some kind of fault.
Okay.
And I showered in the dark. I got dressed in the dark. So, yeah, it was a dark morning for me. Dark night.
You were mentioning the other day, though, that in South Africa they have their own power outage situation.
Yeah.
Right?
But the funny thing is that I was in South Africa for like 6 months, and I didn't like what's this thing called? Oh, I'm so tired. Experience. I didn't experience a light off.
Right.
6 months.
6 months.
And there's like a power.
So it means something is getting better, right?
No, it means that in South Africa I live in a better.
I was about to also ask. So what are the hotspots for Doomsday in South Africa?
Oh, actually, there are no hotspots. Like, it's generally everywhere. So they try to distribute it fairly. So they'll say like 4 hours
so
here,
it's like
2
load
hours
shedding.
here. Yeah, 4 hours here, 2 hours here, 3 hours there. So it depends which area you live, really, which neighborhood.
I think Ghana, Nigeria, and South Africa seem to have gained some notoriety when it comes to power outages.
Yeah, that's
especially, I mean, in Nigeria, when you talk of NEPA, then everyone knows what time it is.
What's happening?
Practically every human being there has a generator. But we've had our own brushes with power outages, South Africa, and I'm sure many other countries on the African continent. I feel, in fact, I mean, you know how it is a slur to refer to our continent as the dark continent. It is. But I mean, taking aside all of that slur and everything, it is the dark continent in the sense that when you look at the continent from space and you look at, I mean, comparatively to other continents, they are brighter at night.
Yeah,
but here, and that tells you, it gives you a glimpse of the power situation across the continent. But I found something worrying. I was having a discussion yesterday with one of those in our top management about the rains and the erratic patterns, you know, global warming, climate change. And September, you would expect some heat, but of course, sometimes the rains also come, like we are seeing. But some of the footage I saw, videos from Spintex, from East Legon, you know, from other places. Let's not even talk about Kaneshi and the rest, because we know what happens in those places. It was as though Noah's Ark had just set sail one more time. I was just
terrible.
dumbfounded.
Every year we have to deal with this.
Accra floods was trending again yesterday.
Because every time it rains for maybe like some 3 hours, 2 hours straight, we have to deal with the floods. It's terrible. But let's say good morning to Liz Heyfron Asari. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm tired, but I'm fine.
Hey, it looks like this morning we are all
Tired.
Where did we wake up? Because Liz, to confess, we are tired too.
Yeah.
But you know, it is what it is. You do what you do, we do what we do.
Yeah.
And Ghana keeps up.
And we appreciate what you do.
Thank you. I also appreciate what you do.
Okay,
Listening to you.
Before Mapito starts with the daily graphic, I'd just like to find out. The rains came again yesterday. Some places were taken over by the rain. Did you have any experience? Anything to share?
No, not really. Even though I went to the office and came, all the areas that I passed through, even though most of the time it's flooded and things, was pretty okay yesterday. Maybe because I came in early. Because I had other things to do, but maybe because I came in early. But I don't know what else we can say about these rains that will cause us as a people to listen. We know what causes the floods. Apart from our insanitary conditions, we have built-in waterways and all kinds of things. We know what causes it, but nobody is ready to take action.
Nobody seems to want to take action. Well, let's go straight into the Daily Graphic. And the big story is Save Fishery Industry. Now, the association is calling for strong policies on foreign fishers. The dominance of foreign industrial fishing fleets in the country's maritime waters, it said, was killing local capacity drive, and a way was needed to address the development. And we also have UN pledges $260 million for support for SDGs and Agenda 2063. We also have IMF Ghana confer on economy, and government committed to minority rights. That's according to the Attorney General. Let's go to the IMF Ghana confer on economy, and that is on page 16. Let's see if I can get a bit of that. All right, so we know that a delegation from the IMF led by the mission chief to Ghana arrived in Accra over the weekend and started the negotiations with officials from the Ministry of Finance and the Bank of Ghana. The negotiations expected to explore the nature of policies, reforms and programs that the loan support should entail in helping to stabilize their economy. In a separate statement yesterday announcing the commencement of negotiations, the Ministry of Finance said a key prerequisite for a program was a confirmation that the country's debt was on a sustainable path. The key prerequisite for a program was a confirmation that the country's debt was on a sustainable path. That's a very interesting one. Liz, what do you think? Do you think that the country's debt is on a sustainable path?
Sustainable path? No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all, because we have overspent and we have reached the part where we are rock bottom.
Yeah.
And I don't see the kind of policies that will kind of like ensure a sustainable path for our debt servicing. We are not doing anything new. We are not doing anything differently. We are not being as austere as we ought to be. And if we don't, then we definitely are not coming out of our debt situation anytime soon. You want to see policies that will cut back on our spending, especially the spending that we don't really need to engage in.
Yeah.
Having all these vehicles traveling in convoys, living above our means, that kind of thing. We're not seeing it. We're not seeing our industries being given the boost that they need to encourage them to produce for consumption in Ghana. We are not seeing it. We are not seeing us cutting back by putting our monies more into infrastructural development that will probably last us a long time. We are just consuming everything that we are getting.
Yeah.
And until we move to the place where we are producing more, importing less, making sure that we are developing the nation, putting the money where it really is needed. No time soon.
Yeah.
We'll be able to sustain our debt restructuring.
All right, now let's also talk about something that's very interesting here. They have like a special supplement, and it's promoting domestic tourism for wealth creation. I'm not sure if you can see that. So, promoting domestic tourism for wealth creation. Ghana eyes ultimate tourism destination spots. Now, officials in the tourism sector are working around the clock to position Ghana as the most preferred tourism destination in Africa. And that's according to the Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture, Dr. Mohammed Ibrahim Awal. So he said to help make Ghana a top tourism destination on the continent, an aggressive campaign to invite the rest of the world to experience the country had already begun. The minister said that tourism was currently ranked as the third largest contributor to gross domestic products in Ghana after cocoa, oil and gas resources. He added that Ghana was also home to some of the richest and most diverse cultures of the world, with people exuding an ever-welcoming wealth which should motivate travelers to visit the country. He said, and it's in quotes, "It is the vision of the government to move tourism from being the third largest contributor to our GDP to becoming the leading contributor by 2024. And I think it's very good what they're doing with the tourism sector. But one thing that I've always noticed is that the roads leading to all of these tourism sites, these museums, going to Cape Coast, the roads are terrible.
Most of them are in a simply deplorable state.
Most of them,
in fact, some of them don't even have proper parts leading to them.
So, Liz, do you have anything to say about our tourism industry and how we can improve it, and what are some of the things we can do to become the leading tourist destination?
I heard what the minister said in 1994 when we hosted the Africa Travel Association. We have been paying lip service to tourism for that long.
Yeah.
And we are still paying lip service to the tourism industry. When you travel out and you come back, you realize that the cost of hotels in Ghana is one of the highest. And so you wonder how you're going to encourage tourists to come into your country when your hotel bills are skyrocketing. You have to pay so much for accommodation.
Yeah.
You don't see all the other things that you see when you go out, where it's not only the big hotels that people are paying attention to. They're either tented camps, they're either small budget hotels that are comfortable for everybody. Our budget hotels here are nothing to write home about. And if we don't get our act together, then we will continue crying and saying that will make tourism number one. I don't know why tourism is not number one now. We try and organize all these fine homecoming events, and yet people come in then and then they go out and they're not willing to come back.
Yeah.
And like you said, the roads to our tourist sites are deplorable. We have not developed our tourist sites in any way. If you travel out to a tourist destination where you're told that you see wildlife, you could be there 2-3 days before you see any animals pass. So we are not really developing our tourism industry. It's a shame that we are not. We are thinking that the private sector should do it, but does the private sector have the capital to be able to invest at the rates that they are borrowing from the banks? So we need to look at it holistically.
So Liz mentioned accommodation. Accommodation in Accra is just ridiculously overpriced. And I don't even know what
Accra is one of the most expensive cities to be in on many, especially now with our rate of inflation. But it's always been one of those most expensive cities on the continent and beyond when it comes to accommodation. It's one of those rentals. It's insidious, actually. And
I just don't know what we're even paying for. Even the quality
you go
of
to
the
certain
houses
places,
are terrible.
Mapito, even in places like, and I'm not denigrating any place, Apapa going, because when you look at the Labone area, Apapa going in there, when you look at Chado now and what it's become, and you see some places, even around the Teshi areas and all of that, you look at the space they are offering you. And they are saying 2-bedroom, for example, but each room is, I don't know what the measurements are off the top of my head, but they are so small, they are more like cubicles. That should give you an idea. And the outrageous sums of money they are calling for. And the fact that we have, systems, or should have systems, to regulate all of this. I don't know, I know the jurisdiction, part of the jurisdiction of the Rent Control Office is to get into some of these matters. But we've said it time and again, landlords shouldn't even be taken more than 6 months. More than 6 months. But they are doing so with wanton abandon. I mean, they're taking 2 years. And if you're lucky, subsequently, they would accept a year moving on. For those renting to do business, like seamstresses, hairdressers and the rest.
5 years or
3 years, minimum. 5 years, 10 years. I mean, it works both ways, because some may say if I pay for 10 years, but how many can afford that? I have a friend who recently wanted a place somewhere around East Lagos. If I tell you how much they were asking for, and for what, 5 years?
Can you imagine?
It's sickening, but we'll not deal with all of these problems. It's all about the talk shop, and what I detest in this country is it's always, we will do, we never do.
Yeah.
We will do. Do you know how long we've been speaking about this 6-month issue, and you shouldn't even be paying for more than 6 months? I think I've been talking about it since practically as long as I've lived. It's insane.
That's crazy.
It's insane.
But let's check out what you have in the Daily Guide.
Well, let me get into the Daily Guide newspaper. Ghana IMF negotiate bailout. I'll bring you details of that. There's also EC pledges ID cards for qualified voters. There's Bagbin has not ditched GBA. Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekbo says so. And then government bridging development gaps. Dr. Baumia, the vice president, says so. But the banner headline, NDC sponsored evil, quote, Jeers at Nana. You know, I asked you yesterday about, since I wasn't there, I didn't have the pink sheets to show in court.
Yeah.
But you had been there and you had the evidence.
I had, yeah.
Can you reiterate for all of us, what was the mood? Did you feel this was spontaneous, or was it something that appeared rehearsed? Something that appeared, you know, political?
This was something that was literally spontaneous. As soon as he went onto the stage and he started speaking, people were just like upset, you know, because even if you go to Twitter, people
you mean immediately it was announced that Mr. President was coming to deliver
as soon
the
as he
speech?
started speaking. As soon as he started speaking, that's when they started booing and just hooting, and like they were just not interested in what he had to say, you know. And if you go to Twitter, like I was saying, that if you go to Twitter, people are saying that, you know what, we don't want to hear what you have to say, right? Imagine you're here at the concert, you're trying to forget your problems, but your biggest problem in life comes to the stage to talk about whatever he has to say. We don't want to hear what you have to say. Do you get it? Let us just continue, because the funny thing is that there were a lot of speakers, and they were talking about climate change, they were talking about ending extreme poverty, but none of these people were booed. Do you understand?
Until Mr. President
Until
came.
Mr. President came.
And I've seen that same rhetoric. I mean, I like to go on Twitter and see how people are reacting.
Yeah.
And some people were basically just saying, we came to this concert to forget about our woes, our troubles, and then we see Mr. President. But I don't even have a problem with that. For me, I feel, yes, maybe it could have been mitigated because, like I said yesterday, it was a bit disturbing to have the president of the land, father figure, you know, jeered, booed in that way. Though you cannot take it away from ordinary Ghanaians to express their sentiments freely. But I feel it cast a slur on the entire event for the president to be booed like that. But what I don't get, what I can't fathom for the life of me is presidential staffers, people in the president's team, others trying to say, oh, you know what? These people were all NDC. But they were all members of the opposition. In fact, they had been bussed there or they came there. And I'm thinking, okay, so who conducted the analysis? Who did the head count? Who did the head count? Oh, you. Yeah. You're in the opposition, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's getting to, I'm sorry, nonsensical levels where anyone who criticizes anything pro-government is deemed or painted with a certain paintbrush, opposition, NDC. I feel that is a big problem. And if Mr. President is listening, I hear he watches JoyNews a lot. I think you should watch the people around you, because this has happened to many of our leaders. You have praise singers, people around you who are singing a certain tune, but a lot of them may turn out to be sycophants, looking for their own interest instead of your interest and the interest of the country.
What do they say?
That's all I'll say.
What did they say about the king that was naked?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
The emperor that was naked. His aides and others kept saying he had clothes on, when in fact
he was naked.
Anyway, so let's get just a few details of those stories, and we shall call it a wrap. So let's go to page 6. Ghana IMF negotiate bailout, and the Ministry of Finance and the Bank of Ghana yesterday began discussions with the International Monetary Fund team on policies and reforms that could be supported by the fund's lending arrangement to bring Ghana out of its present economic challenges. A statement released by the Finance Ministry said the government was putting together a comprehensive post-COVID-19 economic program, which would form the basis for the negotiations with the IMF team led by Stéphane Roudet, mission chief for Ghana. Even with the IMF program, I think we've shot to about 178% of our drawing rights, what we should get, which is the equivalent of about $1.69 billion. But we wouldn't be alone in this. If you look at Argentina, they are getting about 10 times what their drawing rights are, and other countries as well. But it's not a place you want to be. That's just it. Bagbin has not ditched the GBA. That's according to Roxanne Nelson Dafiamikbo. And he is suggesting that the media has quoted or misquoted what the Speaker of Parliament said, insisting that it must be placed on record that nowhere in the Speaker's welcoming remarks, that is for the Law Society of Ghana, did he ever state that he had resigned from the Ghana Bar Association. So that's just it, to make it very clear. I'll bring in lists on this one as well. EC pledges ID cards for qualified voters. And the Director of Electoral Services at the Electoral Commission, Dr. Sribo Kweku, has stated that the Commission will provide every qualified voter with an identity card before the 2024 general election, barring any unforeseen circumstances. That means there could be unforeseen circumstances. According to him, every qualified voter would get their identity card so that they could be fully registered for the elections within the 2 years. He made mention of this, of course, on Newsfile with Samson Lade and Nyenene. Quick reactions, Liz, to these stories?
When the EC is talking about identity cards, are they talking about the Ghana card, or they are talking about the voter's identity card?
So in this instance, he says the Commission will provide every qualified voter an identity card before the 2024 general election, barring any unforeseen circumstances. I want to believe this has to do with the EC itself, on the back of which people would have to use the Ghana card. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that I think is good news. I mean, nobody should be disenfranchised. So if they're embarking on that, I think that the earlier they start, the better. They shouldn't wait till 2024 when we have to vote to begin to rush to give voters ID cards. So if he has said so, let's see them take action now, so that people are comfortable and know that they have every right to vote and that they can vote.
What do you think of our duplication of cards, though? It appears we have cards for everything in this country. Maybe that's why we have the Ghana card idea. Unfortunately, not everybody has it as well, and that is also hobbling. The other day, you were telling me about that person who was saying that for him, because for him, he won't even bother. He doesn't bank.
And
he doesn't keep his money in the bank.
Because I think that in the past he has bothered, and he doesn't see any improvement in his life apart from him fighting for himself and him making sure that he's comfortable. So that is where some people are getting. And so if everybody is going to get a voter's ID, or it's going to be able to vote, what are the circumstances that people are not going to stand in queues for hours on end only to get the card, and then when they're going to vote, they say, no, your name is not here, try here, and it puts people off when they have gone through a long process to attain just a card. And then when it comes to the day of voting, then they're being tossed haywire. So if they're doing it and they're doing it properly, yes, and they should be able to do it properly. After all, the EC always has officers to help them that go under training, and it's a lot of money. So if you spend so much money, why are you not getting it right? And so the EC needs to sit up. It is important that we all vote. It is important that the voting process is free and fair. It is very important that it is very transparent. Because if you want to make sure that we stay out of conflict, then you have to make sure that everybody is satisfied with what you're rolling out. As long as there's some opposition to what you're doing, there's some disagreement with what you're doing, then we are not sure that even when we go to the polls, we are safe.
Okie doke, that is the situation there, and I think that is it for the Daily Guide. Shall we do some entertainment stories? Usually there's something in the middle.
I was going to touch on the president being booed.
Oh, what's your take on that?
I think that we should have nipped these things in the bud. When some of us started talking about it and started talking about our culture and the way we do things. We were tagged as Kolo, but you see, in the past, and unfortunately, we see some of these leaders themselves in positions call others names and say all kinds of derogatory things about their opponents. It's unfortunate. I really feel very ashamed that it should happen at such an event, or it should happen at all. Because I do not look at the person in the office, I look at the office. And we are denigrating our offices, our high offices. It doesn't matter who is there. That is the office that we should be given respect. But we are not. We are disrespecting everything.
Yeah.
And then you look back and you see that, well, it has come over a period of time, such that now the youth do not blink when they are insulting their elders. They do it with careless abandon. They think that, well, they have every right to call anybody what they want, because they also have arrived. They also are important in this place. But we should not forget our culture. We should not forget that we were groomed a certain way. We should make the world see that even if we disagree with his policies and what he is doing, we will not respect that office. And for me, it is a shame that we did.
Someone just sent through a message as you spoke, and the person wants me to ask you, how about the frustration of the people? Are they not justified in venting that? What do you think?
Well, you're justified in venting your frustrations, but even if you do in the way they did, what problem does it solve?
Right.
For me, that is what we need to be looking at. You can vent your frustrations, but if you're venting your frustrations, you're venting it on who? And I look at frustrations that
let me just, I agree with you to a certain extent, and I agree with them also to a certain extent. I'm somewhere in the middle. But, you know, people, I just get the feeling. We all feel what is happening. You feel it, I feel it, Mapito feels it. Yeah. We all do. But I'm thinking, like I was pointing out earlier, that there may be people around the president who are painting the picture that, you know, things are okay. I think that this was people trying to show Mr. President that, look, you better get your act together, because right now we're at that proverbial creek without a paddle. And I don't know what people around you are telling you, but this is not on. It's not going well. I think that was the mood of the people.
Yes, and I agree, and that's why I'm saying that I do not hold, even though I feel ashamed, and I feel ashamed because of where it occurred. The focus has been moved from what the concert was for to concentrating on the booing of the president. Yet it was a climate change kind of event that should avert our minds to climate change that we do not want to avert our minds to. Yeah. So for me, that's why I think that sometimes we should look at the occasion and make sure that we promote whatever it's being portrayed. Right now, the climate change issue has been lost on us as a people, because all our concentration has moved to the booing of the president. But that was not why the event was organized in the first place. Okay. So all the people who spoke about climate change and what we can do and the solutions for climate change have not been heard.
Just a quick add-on, very briefly on this. It's in the middle spread of the paper, Entertainment or Showbiz, and there's Ejako, an actor, Kofi Edu, that's his real name. He says Nane's reign, that is the reign of this current president, is the best so far. So we've gone to one extreme about people booing or jeering at the president. What do you make of this statement? Nane's reign best so far. I don't know whether he's referencing the Fourth Republic, which looks like it, but what's your reaction?
Well, maybe to him, because I won't say so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mapito?
Well, just a quick one. Still on the
I wouldn't put you on the spot and ask you. No, I wouldn't.
No, don't. Still on the booing thing. It wasn't just President Akufo who was booed. You know, we had in New York, the Global Citizen was also taking place there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Nancy
Pelosi was also booed. So it looks like people are just upset people are venting their frustrations.
Their spleen and all
the disrespect thing that Liz is talking about, I'm not sure. Because they wouldn't have had any other opportunity to vent to the president. This was their only chance, so why not?
They did it. They took advantage of it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, though, in the U.S., did the issue of disrespect or respect come up? I don't know. I've not read. I know she was booed, but did that come up, that Nancy Pelosi had been disrespected?
I haven't seen it. I've read like some 4 articles. I haven't seen the disrespect part, and I think the disrespect part is just an African thing, like Liz is probably a mother. Yeah, it's a culture thing. Liz is probably a mother, a grandmother, someone's daughter, so she has those African values in her. And I think sometimes, having the African values is all great and it's all good, but I also think that these African values is what is holding us back. Yeah, those African values are somewhat holding us back.
So we can say that some of them, and I agree, I mean, up to a point we had female genital mutilation. What was the we used to call it female circumcision, right?
Yeah.
And then we realized that it was so negative, so we gave it a name that would startle you a bit. Female genital mutilation. We used to do that, and we supported it with culture and all of that. So there are some things, and I'm not saying that it is wrong to disrespect your elders, wrong to respect your elders. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not disagreeing fundamentally with you, Liz, but I'm just saying that there are some aspects of our national lives that we very could do away with. When it comes to, and that's why I feel very differently on the Galamsey issue and Odike and what happened to him. Because chiefs, relevant institution, fundamental institution in this country, we know the role they play, but I feel sometimes they overstep their bounds, all in the name of culture and all of that. And it's all sometimes quite a bit of hogwash. But yeah, let's go ahead.
Yeah, so just quickly from the Daily Statesman, AG rally support for minority groups, and Elembele DC urges residents to support the Galamsey fight. And we also have Maslock secures AFDB funding support, and government positive about the IMF deal as critical stakeholder engagements begin. But let's go to page 4 with the Elembele DC, where the Elembele DC is urging residents to support the Galamsey fight. He says this is largely due to the involvement of numerous actors in the Galamsey menace. Okay, so he's saying that there are a lot of challenges fighting the menace on the ground, and this is largely due to the involvement of numerous actors in the Galamsey. He believes the fight will be successful if Ghanaians join hands with MMDCs by providing them with information on Galamsey sites, owners, and their operations. Liz, we've been talking about this Galamsey fight. Now, the Elembele DC is urging residents to support it. What are your thoughts before we let you go?
To support the fight, I agree. But then the question on the other hand is that what is the Elembele DC doing for the people that he's asking to support the fight? If they're not into Galamsey, what other alternatives do they have to go into? And so you begin to ask the question of, why would people prefer to do Galamsey and destroy the environment instead of cultivate farms that would give us produce? And so if you're looking at it vis-a-vis, then you ask yourself, what can we do to encourage them to farm rather than go into Galamsey? I'm sure that with Galamsey, they're getting quick money. And as individuals, that is what they're looking at. They're looking at how to better themselves individually.
Yeah.
And if you're calling for them to join the fight, then you must have an alternative for them. If you're calling for them to give up those who are spearheading Galamsey, then you must be sure that, well, if they give you the information, they are comfortable that they are being protected, and so they would be covered by the Whistleblowers Act. If all these things are not taken into consideration and you just call for them to join the fight, I'm sure they'll just listen to you and turn and do exactly the opposite. So what have we as a people put in place to ensure that the people who are engaged in Galamsey, and we know that those who are there washing the mud and everything and making our waters are not the ones who are the end beneficiaries of all the gold that is coming out. So how are we moving them away from engaging in Galamsey to doing something profitable that will benefit us as a people, as a nation, that will protect our waters? So he should give us a clear picture of exactly what he wants the people to do. Otherwise, he just says it, they hear it, and they will continue to do what they're doing, because that is their livelihood.
Let's hear from Asari. Thank you so much for
Oh, let me just
time.
sneak this by Liz before she goes. We don't have time for the other headlines, but RTI, since you're with the RTI, I just want to put this to you. Parliament approves fees for access to information. That's in the Finder newspaper. And Mapito, so persons seeking information are to pay 27 pesos for every photocopy of A4 size of information. And it goes back to Section 75 of the Right to Information Act 2019. But a quick question for you. We here at the Multimedia Group, JoyNews specifically, reached out to the Ghana Airport Company Limited on the issue of Frontiers Healthcare. And we've been told many things about Section 10. Do you have any quick reaction to that?
I just saw it this morning, but yes, I believe that if the Frontiers Health were working for GACL, then GACL just can't throw us off and say that they do not have a response and that they do not know what was involved with them, because then how did they come to be the health institution at the airport that was conducting COVID tests? Because the airport is GACL's space. So I would ask them to come again.
Les Hayfron-Asari, media consultant, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Mapito, that's rather curious, right? So, like Bright Simmons says, if you don't know how much they were earning, how did you know that they were not cheating you?
Yeah. Well, up next
But
there
anyway.
is sports.